Hey YouTube, Scarlett from DEMONESS Customs here to discuss with you the most talked about YouTube and nerf topic that I see popping up a lot on forums is flywheels versus springs. Now my personal pick would be springs because you can pick them up, you can use them. It's not really a lot of know-how to mod them and improve them, and they all are relatively cheap. But now I know there's going to be the one guy in the comments that's going to be like, oh, well, you can go get a stryfe for like $20. Well, yeah, and then you got to get batteries, and then you got to learn how to wire it if you want to improve any performance on it. Where with a spring, you just rip it apart, you take the air restrictor out, you throw a bigger spring in it, and voila, you have a better hitting gun. But a lot of people will also argue, oh, well, it's not that hard to rewire, you just need a soldering gun, you need this, that, and the other thing. Again, that's going to be more money, but then it can also go the other way of with springs. You need to go and buy springs, you need to know how to stretch springs, you need to know how to tear the blaster down, etc, etc, etc. So that's my personal take on that. I for a while was skeptical of flywheels. I thought they were expensive, they were overpriced, not really worth the value of the money that were asked of them, didn't really perform like I thought they were going to. I remember I was like 15 when I got my first rapid strike. I still wasn't impressed with it. I've always thought that flywheels, again, were overpriced. They didn't perform as well as a spring. And also a lot of times you're shelling out more money for batteries, for, extra wire components if you want it to work better, toggle switches, higher gauge wire, solder equipment, that kind of stuff. With the spring thing, a spring blaster, sorry, you can, get a spring off of pretty much anything from a door frame that happens to line up right, or any kind of latch springs, or, anything that has a spring in it that matches that same diameter. You could throw in a nerf gun and see how it performs. You can't exactly just throw anything that happens to be electronic in a electronic nerf gun. Now people are going to be like, oh, well, I've modded mine to run off of, drill batteries, or, any kind of other batteries, light bulb batteries and all that. Again, that's money you have to spend towards improving that gun on top of purchasing that initial gun. You can get a spring gun from $5 to $25, on up. My personal springer that I use is a Busby Snipe that costs me about $17. I've put any kind of stuff I had laying around in it, and it performs just like I want it to. I do actually personally now own a modulus, but again, it's not entirely what I want. I keep it on hand for that main reason of just having it in my collection of, yeah, I have electronic blaster. I have always been geared towards a more spring oriented, because personally, I'm not electronic savvy at all. I don't know anything about soldering really, or any kind of setup in a, electronic blaster at all. Any kind of simple things that I can learn, I'll put into it. But, as for rewiring it or doing any of that kind of stuff is not in my field. But mainly, the biggest thing that I personally see in the difference between flywheels and springs is it all comes mainly down to personal preference. Like I have two with me right now, off to the side here, Halo poster in the back. I have two sitting here, which is my personal spring and my personal flywheel. Now both of them perform how I want them to, now after minor upgrades and just cosmetic changes and how I personally run them. But this can apply to any kind of nerf gun that anyone uses. It comes down to personal preference. There is no, I see this all the time on threads, there is no superior blaster. It's basically how you make your blaster, how you make it run. That's pretty much how cut and dry it is. You know, they'll say like, oh, Stryfe can outperform a Rampage, you know, and they can shoot so much harder and faster. Yeah, if you want to sit there and waste bullets or darts, if you want to sit there and, you know, spray darts all over the place, then, you know, maybe Strife's for you. Maybe that person, you know, that's running the Rampage likes the feel of that pump, or, you know, it all comes down to personal preference. Like when I go and show my personals off in a moment here, you guys could literally sit here and be like, oh, I would never use that, I'd never touch it, you know, it doesn't suit me, which is fine. That's how Nerf is run. It's everybody has their own set class, how they want to run in a Nerf war, how they want to use their gear in a Nerf war. It mainly comes down to here. You know, it's what you're comfortable with. You can't just throw somebody a blaster and be like, here, use it, and then expect them to perform well with it, because it's not up to their standards. Now I'm going to cut to a segment of me just covering my basics of my personal guns that I would use, and then I'll finish up. Alright, I will now go over my personal pick for a spring that I would use in a Nerf war. This is my, get that out of there. I'm actually going to stand up because this is so massive I can't even get it in the frame. There we go. There's my messy room. This is my modified Busby Snipe. Okay, it's done up in a very black and blue paint job because, again, it's my own personal. It has a double down foregrip here and a retaliator extension up here. I also have added a modulus stock piece to hold an extra magazine because Busby didn't think of that. Again, I can't go handing this to somebody and saying, here, use it, it's going to perform well in your hands, because it comes down to how they are going to have it perform. You know, they could make this perform like complete garbage if they don't know how to even draw the bolt on it. You know, like, neither of these guns that I'm going to show you, you know, can perform well or are going to be performing well in everyone's hands. And I see all the time on forums that I belong to, you know, like, oh, this is so much superior than this, you should go buy this, you should go do that. You really don't need to listen to that kind of stuff. You need to, you know, decide for yourself. You know, do you want to run something that's, you know, bolt action, or, you know, how it primes is top prime or back prime or bolt prime, you know, like the long shot, the long strike, or like a top prime like a retaliator, recon, or just simply a pump prime, you know, like a alpha trooper or a rough cut. It depends on how you want to run your own idea of what you run. So this is personally my choice for a Springer. In my opinion, is how I would run any kind of spring blaster in a Nerf war. I will now show you my own personal flywheel that, again, I said I was skeptical about. Now this is a new released, as you can see, this is a modulus. Minor things have been done. It's running on IMR batteries. It revs like, you know, a beast. Another thing is I took the shell, as I went in to put the batteries in and resolder everything, I saw that the barrel was removable. So I took the inner barrel out and replaced it with some extra barrel material I actually had on hand, and now this is all one solid barrel piece. Instead of having the front piece constantly shifting on me and moving, it is now one solid barrel piece from flywheel to the end of the barrel. Again, you can't hand this to someone and say, okay, here, use it, and be able to perform well with it, because this is your own personal setup. Because, you know, I know guys out there that hate flywheels. I was one of them for quite a while. I thought they were like I said before, I thought they were overpriced, they didn't perform well. You know, I thought they, you know, are costly because you got to buy batteries with them. Like, this is a $40 gun and then you got to spend another $9 to $10 on rechargeable double A's just to keep this as a functionality. You know, or else you're going to be shelling out, you know, tons and tons of money to put batteries in it. There's no reason behind that whatsoever. And like I said, it's been internally upgraded, so it revs a lot louder than any of the stock stuff. But, you know, again, if a kid was running around with this stock, that's fine, you know. And the amount of ridicule that people get that I see at Nerf wars that I personally have gone to, which are, you know, far and few between, but that I see that get ridiculed for, you know, oh, that guy's a loser because he's running a stock gun. So what? Maybe he doesn't know maybe he doesn't have the know-how to mod it, or doesn't have the time or the tools to do so. You know, like, it just cracks me up when I go to a war and I overhear a group of people saying, you know, oh, that guy can't hit anything because his gun's not modified or anything. It's like, so what? Who cares? You know, I see some guys with modified guns that shoot too hard that they can't hit anything anyways because they're shooting too hard. You know, it's a hit and miss kind of scenario. It's, you know, whatever suits your play type is whatever suits your play type. You know, it honestly comes down to personal opinion. So yeah. Alright guys, I'm just going to wrap up with mainly just covering over my points again of, you know, it comes down to playstyle, comes down to, you know, your personal budget. You know, maybe you can't afford an electronic blaster versus you can afford, you know, that $5 thrift store, you know, Springer. You know, it doesn't come down to, you know, who's got the flashiest blasters, who's got the most important blasters, you know, who's got the big bad ones. I mean, because for the longest time I have known Busby has been hated in the Nerf world. No one likes working with it. They think it's under par to Nerf, you know, because Nerf's had its name out for so long. You know, I run in wars with this, and guys look at me like, what is that? Like, because not a lot of people use the Busby stuff, because again, it's common knowledge that, oh, Busby's horrible, Busby, you can never do anything. Sorry to itch my eyes, guys. But you can't really perform well with Busby. I mean, does that really sound like it can't compete? I mean, there are guys that, you know, will go with a long shot, completely overhauled it, and this thing can go toe-to-toe with it. And they look at you and they scratch their heads and they're like, wait, that can go toe-to-toe with a Nerf gun? That's a Busby gun. What is, you know, what is with that? Again, it comes down to what's your shell type. You know, like, do you want a bullpup that's small to you? Do you want a rifle? It's all kind of different variables that you need to take into account. And the amount of ignorance is just, it cracks me up. It's funny. You know, like, I know guys will run stripes by themselves, or, you know, and there's a lot of people out there that go and say, oh, you know, flywheels are so much better than springs and all that controversy. And it, you know, I'm here just to basically say it's, you know, that's okay for you to say. I mean, that's your personal preference. But then the amount of people that sit there and are like unhappy because, you know, they're picking up these guns for like $40, $50 because they're what's considered cool, and then they're sitting in a war and they're not having fun. It's not what they personally want, it's what is deemed cool. It's, you know, the flashiest blaster, the most expensive blaster, you know, it's the new hot topic. And I just wanted to make this video about mainly, don't let yourself get caught up in what's cool and what's wanted by others, because, you know, there's tons of people out there that are just like, you know, oh, I have these guns and they're sitting in my closet because I don't even want to use them, but when so-and-so's around, then I'll use them because I want to feel cool. And it's like, use whatever you want. I mean, I get laughed at every war I take this to because it's a Busby gun. You know, no one ever wants to be around the guy that has, you know, a quote-unquote cheap gun. You know, but the opposite end of that spectrum, you know, you're sitting here with the modulus that is like $40, you know, so It's pretty much how you take it. So like always, guys, like, subscribe, drop a comment on my next kind of, I guess, talking video I should make. I don't know if you would call this a blog or what. I don't know about all that new stuff that's coming out, but I just wanted to make my opinionated video. Thanks for watching.